Are you ready to hear a story that will make your heart race, your breath catch, and maybe even bring tears to your eyes? This is a fairy tale, and it's not a made-up drama. It's real. It happened in 2017 in a quiet little provincial town where nothing extraordinary usually breaks the calm rhythm of life. The main character of our story is Anna, a young woman with a warm smile and bright, lively eyes. She and her husband, Alexander, had been waiting for one of the happiest moments of their lives, the birth of their child. Anna was always full of energy, the kind of person who could light up a room just by walking in. But her pregnancy turned out to be far from ordinary. By her second month, doctors noticed something unusual. Her belly was growing much faster than expected. "Everything's fine, Anna. Maybe you're having twins," her doctor, Irina, said with a practiced smile. But there was a shadow in her voice that Anna couldn't ignore. Alexander, a good-natured carpenter who could build anything with his hands, squeezed Anna's palm reassuringly. "Nothing to worry about. Honey, you know what my grandmother used to say. The bigger the family, the bigger the joy," he joked, though deep down he was just as curious and a little uneasy. By the end of the third month, Anna's belly looked more like it belonged to someone in their sixties. Irina insisted on a detailed ultrasound. The room was warm with soft morning sunlight. Anna lay down on the exam table, Alexander holding her hand, both of them quietly waiting. Minutes passed in silence, except for the hum of the machine. Then Irina's brow furrowed. Her hand froze mid-scan. "Is something wrong?" Anna asked, her voice trembling. "One moment. I'll call a colleague," Irina said calmly, though her eyes betrayed her concern. 2 more doctors entered. All 3 peered at the screen. Alexander couldn't take the suspense any longer. "What do you see?" he blurted out. Irina turned to them, her voice steady but filled with disbelief. "Anna, you're not carrying 1 baby. Not 2. There are 10. The words hit them like a thunderclap. Anna stared, trying to understand if she had heard correctly. Alexander was so stunned, he dropped the coffee cup he'd been holding. 10 babies. 10 tiny lives depending on her. The news spread quickly, first among their families, then the entire town. People reacted with everything from astonishment to pity to excitement. Some neighbors brought gifts and baby clothes. Others just shook their heads in disbelief. And while support poured in, Anna's heart grew heavier. Each day, her body felt more strained, her movements slower, the weight of 10 lives pressing on her not just physically, but emotionally. Late at night, she and Alexander would sit together in silence, holding hands. "How will we manage this, Sasha?" "10's impossible," she whispered. "We'll manage, Anna. We always do," he said, hugging her tightly. But even as he spoke, worry gnawed at him. What they didn't know was that the real test, the one that would push them to the edge of life and death, hadn't even begun yet. Within days of the shocking ultrasound, Dr. Irina called Anna and Alexander back to hospital. "Your situation is extremely rare," she said. "We want to prepare you as much as possible. I've arranged a consultation with a full team of specialists." When they arrived, the room was already full. 5 doctors, obstetricians, pediatricians, even a nutritionist. Their voices were calm, professional, but every word carried a weight Anna could feel in her bones. "Anna," Irina began gently, "your case is unique, but also comes with very high risks. We'll be monitoring you constantly. You need to be prepared for the possibility of premature labor." The words high risk and premature sank into her mind like stones in water, echoing louder than anything else. Questions about diet and schedules faded into background noise as fear took center stage. Outside the hospital, the news had already spread far beyond the walls of their home. Her mother gasped when she first heard it. Hand pressed to her chest, eyes wide. Neighbors would stop them in the street. Some offered help. "I have a spare crib you can take," one said, "and we still have baby clothes. Take as much as you need," another offered. Others whispered behind their backs. Poor woman, how would she manage? But Anna's body was already starting to answer that question for her. Her belly grew at an impossible speed. Tasks that had once been effortless, climbing out of bed, cooking a simple meal, became exhausting challenges. By the 8th month, She was almost entirely confined to bed rest. Alexander tried to keep her spirits up. He'd come home from work with bags of groceries, read medical articles late into the night, and sketched plans for expanding their tiny house into something big enough for 10 cribs. But Anna could see the fatigue in his eyes. His jokes became less frequent, his silences longer. And then one quiet evening, everything changed. Anna sat on the bed, her hand resting on her belly. Something felt wrong. The usual flutter and kicks that had become her constant companions were fading. The movement was so faint now she had to strain to feel it. "Sasha, I think something's not right," she said quietly. "They're barely moving. I can't explain it, but something's happening." This time, Alexander didn't try to reassure her with jokes. He grabbed his coat. "We're going to the hospital. Now." The 15-minute drive felt endless. In the ER, Dr. Irina was already waiting. Without a word, she guided Anna to the examination room and began scanning. The screen lit up with tiny shapes, each one a fragile life inside her. Alexander held her hand, so tightly his knuckles turned white. After several minutes, Irina spoke, carefully. 9 of the babies are fine. Their hearts are steady. But the 10th, she hesitated. The 10th is unusual. I'm not sure it's a baby. We'll need more tests, but it could be something dangerous. The words hung in the air, heavy and cold. Anna stared at the screen, her mind struggling to grasp the meaning. Alexander's grip on her hand tightened. Whatever lay ahead, they knew this was only the beginning of a fight for life itself. That night, Anna and Alexander stayed in the hospital. They were given a small private room, so the doctors could monitor her closely. But neither of them could sleep. The sterile smell of disinfectant, the soft hum of medical equipment, and the weight of the unknown filled the air like a storm about to break. Anna lay staring at the ceiling, her mind trapped on a single loop. What is the 10th? Is it dangerous? Will it hurt the others? Will I survive this? Alexander sat by her side, holding her hand, his thumb brushing gently over her fingers. He prayed silently. Not the rehearsed kind of prayers, but the desperate, raw whispers of a man who's terrified to lose the person he loves most. By morning, things got worse. Anna felt a strange, pulling pain lowered her abdomen. At first, she tried to dismiss it. It's probably just the stress. But the pain sharpened, cutting through her denial. "Sasha," she whispered, eyes wide, I think I'm having contractions." He didn't hesitate. He hit the call button. Within seconds, Dr. Irina and 2 nurses rushed in. A quick examination confirmed the fear. Anna was in premature labor. "We need to move fast," Irina said firmly. "We're preparing for an emergency C-section. We'll do everything in our power to keep you and the baby safe." The hallway to the operating room felt like a blur. Alexander wasn't allowed inside. He stopped at the doors, his heart pounding so hard he could feel it in his throat. He leaned against the cold wall, clutching a small wooden cross in his hands. The muffled sounds of hurried voices and clattering instruments seeped through the door. Inside, Anna was placed on the operating table. The lights were blinding, the air heavy with urgency. The team worked quickly. Within minutes, the first baby was delivered. A tiny, piercing cry filled the room. "Girl," one of the doctors called out, passing the newborn to a nurse. Then another cry, and another. Second baby. Third. Fourth. Each tiny voice brought a wave of relief, and the room filled with a rhythm of new life. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for, the 10th. The surgeon's hands froze. "What is this?" he murmured. What they had believed to be the 10th child was, in fact, a dense tumor, a fibroid, dangerously close to the baby's. Removing it was their only choice if they wanted to save the rest. They worked fast, but then the monitors screamed. Anna was losing too much blood. Despite every effort, the bleeding wouldn't stop. "Clamp here. Suction. Prepare to remove the uterus." Irina's voice cut through the chaos. It was a brutal decision, but the only way to save her life. Outside, Alexander's chest tightened as if the walls were closing in. He had come here praying for 10 healthy babies and his wife's smile. Now he realized he might walk out with neither. Alexander sat in the cold hallway, the harsh fluorescent lights making everything feel even more unreal. He kept checking the clock on the wall, but time seemed broken. 5 minutes felt like an hour. From behind the closed doors came muffled shouts, the clang of metal, the low murmur of doctors speaking too fast for him to catch the words. Every so often, a nurse would rush past, none of them meeting his eyes. His hands trembled as he gripped the cross so tightly the edges dug into his skin. God, please, please just let them live. Then the door swung open. A nurse came out holding a small bundle wrapped in a hospital blanket. "It's your daughter," she said softly, but Alexander barely heard her. "Anna? Is she?" The nurse's eyes flicked away. "They're still working. She's fighting." Inside the operating room, Anna's world was fading in and out. Bright lights, masked faces, the metallic smell of blood. Her body felt heavy, as if she were sinking into deep water. Somewhere far away, she could hear the tiny cries of her newborns. But one sound stood out, a faint, almost fragile whimper. A nurse leaned in close to her. This little boy is the weakest. He's struggling to breathe. Anna's hand, trembling, reached for him. They placed the baby against her chest. His skin was warm but fragile, his breath shallow. She whispered, barely audible, "Stay with me. Don't leave me, please." Something strange happened then. His breathing grew steadier, the rise and fall of his tiny chest sinking with hers. The room was still full of chaos. Surgeons working to remove the tumor, try and stop the bleeding. But Anna felt a single, unshakable thought. I have to live. For him. For all of them. Irina's voice cut through the tension. We've stopped the bleeding. She's stable. Relief washed over the team. The last sutures were made. The machines began to quiet, and the air shifted from panic to exhausted triumph. When Alexander was finally allowed inside, he saw Anna pale and weak, but alive, with 9 tiny bundles in clear cribs beside her, and the smallest one still pressed against her chest. Tears filled his eyes as he realized this was the moment their impossible family truly began. They spent almost 2 months in the hospital. Every day began and ended the same way. Feedings, weight checks, endless doctor visits. 9 tiny lives needed attention every single minute. The weakest boy, the one who'd been on Anna's chest in the operating room, remained under special observation for a long time. His breathing was as fragile as a thin thread, but he clung to life with surprising strength. The doctors called him the fighter. On the day of discharge, the whole town gathered outside the hospital. Neighbors, relatives, even random passers-by wanted to see the woman who gave birth to 9. Some brought diapers and baby clothes. Others just flowers and notes of good wishes. But there were also whispers. She's going to lose her mind with so many. Anna smiled, but deep inside she knew ahead was not a fairy tale, but a real battle. At home, they quickly realized their life had changed forever. Feedings every 2 hours, sleepless nights, mountains of laundry, and endless baby cries. Sometimes Anna would sit in the kitchen among bottles and baby blankets, quietly crying from exhaustion. But every time she looked at her children, especially at that little fighter, her heart filled with a strange, almost painful happiness. She knew the miracle had already happened. All 9 were alive. A year passed. Their home was still noisy, laughter, shouting, the patter of little feet. But now there was no fear in it, only life. And sometimes, late at night, when the children finally fell asleep, Anna would take that same boy in her arms and whisper, "You gave me the strength to survive, and I will survive for all of you." Anna and Alexander's story spread across the internet. Some saw madness in it, others inspiration. But for them, it wasn't a sensation. It was simply family. A family worth fighting for, even when everything seemed impossible.